June 13th, Harbor Management Commission Mooring Committee regular monthly meeting. This is Jack Herschler. We have Bill Perugini, Kim Taylor, Harbor Master LeClaire, Deputy Harbor Master Mr. Dean, Jeff Warren, and is Jeff Stedman on the line? No, and Jeff Engborg is not here today either. Okay.
Captain Carroll is here representing the public, Mr. Borvin.
Mr. Carroll, welcome. We are going to, it's a day before Flag Day, and we are going to salute the flag.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you.
The first item on today's agenda is a report from the Harbor Master.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the boats are populating the moorings. I was out this past weekend double-checking where everyone is. And the good news is all the boats in the harbor should be in the harbor. The bad news is, once again, they're not always in the right spots. So I had about, how many people are in the wrong spots this year? It's, I have my numbers here someplace. Anyways, I have 4 or 5 boats in the improper mooring. So I sent them all emails yesterday asking them to recheck their locations and move the boats. They're close. They're all within one of the right location. I thought this year sending everyone drawings with their spots circled would be helpful, but apparently people are still off the spots. But we're getting there. I know that there's one boat that went in and had to come out. Unfortunately, Mr. Cargill is having an issue with his vessel and some water infiltration. So he was in and he had to pull out, so he won't be at his mooring for a bit until they figure out that situation. I did talk again to Justin Cathcart regarding South Benson, where he's at South Benson, and I discussed with him Perry Green, and they do not want the commission or me to take care of their moorings there. I spoke with him because someone contacted me who used to have a mooring there, who Justin's predecessor asked him to leave the mooring because his boat was over 18 feet. And he questioned why, because other boats at Perry Green are larger than 18 feet, and he's correct. So I'm discussing that with Justin as to why his predecessor said no, because I don't see anything restricting him to 18 feet, and you could fit. You know, we have 3 20-footers and a 25-footer. Our Harbor Management Commission has issued permits to, and they fit fine. And Aw Shucks is bigger than that as well. So I did talk to Justin about that.
Our emeritus Harbor Master may have some history.
Mr. Carroll, Pat?
Yes, I'm listening.
Do you have any historical knowledge as to why someone from REC would think there's an 18-foot limit for boats at the town moorings off of Perry Green?
Yes, probably. Go back to the days of Robin Bimmel when he was the marine manager. I learned from him that the max length of boats at Perry Green's was 18 feet, and during the period of time that I was there, the boats did not exceed 18 feet. So what the origin was, I don't know, but I got that information and carried it out from Robin Bimmel.
Okay, thank you.
That's very helpful.
That's very helpful.
Long-standing Parks and Rec rule.
Or tradition.
Yeah.
If you can't find a rule.
If there's no rule, then Parks and Rec wouldn't know about it, and
right.
Yeah.
They just always did it that way.
All right.
Well, I'll follow up with him on that issue. So all the moorings are in, all the boats are populating their moorings. No one has any complaints about the moorings they were assigned. As you know, we moved a bunch of boats around. We gave some folks new moorings. That's worked out well. We have one extra boat I was mentioning off the record before we started. The police towed in a boat last night, a 23-foot sailboat they found off of Fairfield. They're looking for the owner of the boat right now. It's temporarily tied to the dock at Yee Yacht Yard. I'll have to begin the process of having it declared abandoned if they cannot find the owner in the next few days, or find out why. It was anchored. It did have a light on, but there was no one on board, and no one has claimed the boat, and no one was found last night. It was a little rough last night, so they're a little concerned. But we'll have an update, hopefully good news, about the ownership of the boat and the location of the owner shortly. So we had Flare Day, as you know, last weekend, and my new assistant harbor master was there, and we probably went through hundreds, if not thousands, of flares and shots throughout the day. It was quite exciting, and it was fun, because a lot of people, including me, have never shot a flare gun and used some of these flares. We learned the good ones, we learned the bad ones. We trained a lot of people who came just to dispose of flares. We encouraged John and I to try them. Don't just leave them. Let's try these. A number of spouses tried, reluctantly at first, and we encouraged them, if you're on the boat and something happens to your spouse or your co-captain, you need to know what to do in an emergency, how to use the radio, how to use a flare. We attracted one Coast Guard call. Someone called the Coast Guard seeing the flares, which is great. A vessel saw it and reported it, and they knew ahead of time, of course. One person called 911 to the Fairfield dispatch because they saw it. And we attracted an airplane that apparently was doing a flyover at Fairfield U for Special Olympics, who coming back saw the flares and the smoke canisters and came over and did some low circling over us to make sure, the Air Force plane or whoever's plane it was, to make sure everything was safe. And that was good to see people do pay attention to these. So that was a nice event. I went to, yesterday I was at Pequot Yacht Club in the morning to meet with the crew, the new sailing instructors they've just hired for this year, some returning, some new, to give them the rules of the harbor, what I expected and what the Marine Police expects from them as instructors. I think, I talked about their responsibility, talked about what I didn't want to see, including cell phone usage, standing up on the boat, no PFDs. I reminded them that there have been fatalities in the Sound over the last 12 years or so, twice now, with kids unfortunately dying in marine accidents. And it's a serious job. It's a fun job, but it's very serious. I reminded them about other traffic and right-of-way rules and towing boats in, and you have to yield to other vessels. So it was a positive just to hear it from me. The club thought they should hear it from me.
They're all kids, Brian?
Yeah, well, I call them kids. Yeah, some are in their 20s, but some of them are, they're college kids. They're not. Yeah, I think one of them wasn't there because he was still in high school, but the young adults. Young adults. But they seem very responsible, and I know a number of them have come back and seem to be pretty good. I haven't had any complaints. I only have positive things from last year, watching them a few times with thunderstorms coming in and listening on the radio. Just when I'm going to say something, I realize they're already on top of this. They're making the calls at Pequot. They're watching the radar. They're calling boats in to be safe, better than other clubs last year who brought their boats up. And I had to remind some of them to get off the cell phones and pay attention to what you're doing in the channel, because they're texting away, not watching where they're going or who they're towing. And, it wasn't the Pequot kids. It was other young adults that we had to give a little lecture to. So it's all good. Thursday, John and I are going to the safety drill in the harbor at 10 a.m. This is an annual event where they have a mock emergency on the Sound with people in the water or injuries. Fairfield Police and Fire will be there participating as well, and they practice what to do in the event of an emergency, how to handle the 911 call, where to set up a command center, and basically for the staff to figure out what to do to get people in safely. So we'll be doing that. And we have the Blessing of the Fleet and Street Parade on Saturday. Parade is at 11 o'clock. We've changed the blessing a little bit. Instead of relying on a phone call and the timing, we're going to come by at 12 noon for the blessing, and they'll work around the boats, realizing it's harder to schedule the boats than it is to stop a politician from speaking. So they said that as long as we start coming up at noon, they'll make the speeches fit in the allotted time, one way or the other. And we'll hope to have the building opened up, the old workshop at Yee Yacht Yard opened up for that as well. I spent some time out there Saturday vacuuming it out, cleaning it up again, tidying it up a little bit. And I talked to the Marine unit as well, because they're interested in spending more time in that building like they used to do, when Pat was on Pat's watch. They said it would be great if we had a desk there again like you used to have, and they have the key for it now. So we can come in. We'd love to come in the harbor since we come, tie up at the dock and spend some time there. And I said, we'd love to have you do exactly that, spend some time at Yacht Yard. So I'm looking around for a desk now. If we can get, something maybe period correct, a little small wooden desk to put in there like there used to be.
What's at the end of the wall there? Is that a table, not a...
There used to be a table or a desk on the right side when you walked in, but now it's where someone put outboard engines there instead, but straight back is a workbench. It's high up.
The workbench.
Yeah, and on the left side is the sink and the storage. So I think a small little table, just enough to sit there, to put your laptop or your paperwork on, a couple of chairs, is all you really need in there to set something up. It could be something, I'll keep my eyes out even for a portable one that they can just open when they're there, or I could when I'm there, just to make it more open to the public for them. And that's what is going on the...
Should we ask Don Hyman to contact his press folks about the safety drill and maybe send somebody down there, or?
The club usually reaches out. We had News 12 covered it last year live, and it was pretty neat. So if Don, that's not a bad idea, test Don to reach out. He's got great contacts.
Okay.
I'll reach out to Don today.
Okay. I know the patch in the Connecticut Post might be, last year for some reason, I don't remember what we were talking about with Josh Labella, but he was very interested in the safety drill, and he was disappointed that we got in touch with him after it was over.
Okay, so I'll talk to Don for his contacts. The yacht club may not have reached out to them. It's a good idea. And other than that, they did put the soft bottom sign up. I'm pleased to report.
The soft?
There are a few comments on
Yes,
Facebook.
I saw that.
Soft bottom sign.
By the ramp.
So it just says soft bottom?
Yes. Well, people did some adaptations.
I'm sure they did.
Right.
It gets its point across.
That's good.
A boater would know what that means, as opposed to a long-winded, wordy, verbose.
Yeah.
That seems to be the language you put as soft bottom if it's something you're trying to warn people at the ramp.
There's a fellow who got out of his kayak last year at one of the solstice tides, and he was several yards, many yards away from the dock, and he went in up to his waist.
No way.
And struggled to get
goofy.
back to the dock.
Wow.
So.
And his shoes are still out there.
You're probably right, I'm sure.
The sailboat.
Well, Brian's
I did the same thing. My shoes are there.
still out there.
Really?
We had an abnormal low tide, so I got out at my dinghy. I couldn't get the dinghy in, the whaler in, back into the dock, because there was no water, literally an inch of water. So I was just going to walk the last 4 feet in like you normally could, and I was up to my chest immediately.
Holy man.
And the mud it's incredibly soft and dangerously soft. Yeah, you can't get out, Mike. You cannot get out once you're in there. You have to be very careful how to get out. So the tide comes up. But
anything else for the harbor master? So we had put on the agenda, and Jeff's not here today. We should just circle back on the Perry Green bulkhead filing and where we ended up with respect to the depiction of the vessels off of Perry Green and the back and forth that went on in that discussion about the plan for
I believe what happened was that Mr. Sternberg of Race drew some boats on the drawing, but the narrative said that historically, or that there had been up to 25, and I think that's how it was.
Right, and I think he depicted the current state of boats on.
Correct.
Because
he couldn't fit in 25 and make it look like
there's not enough deep water where that would be even feasible, right?
Correct.
So we're filing with wording that talks about the historical references to the 25 and depicting the current state.
and letting us have flexibility on an annual basis to
Yeah.
determine what we can put in
Yeah.
there, so that
And
we can go bigger.
my impression from reading the materials that circulated was that the ladder issue sounds like we're going to have some flexibility with respect to the current ladders are not really spaced in a way that is suitable for the
It's random.
right, and not where the boats are. So pulling in your boat isn't necessarily going to be anywhere close to the ladder. So it sounded like that we may have some
Sounded like
interpretation of where we put the ladders,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
I thought that the question was asked directly of Race, whether or not they had any intention of, what's the right word, okaying the number of moorings here.
Yeah.
I believe they said they're not interested.
Right,
So-
that part, but the ladders per se that's built onto the edge of the wall, I think is where they're placed is also not something that sounds like they want to get involved in.
And I don't know what's gonna happen with the ladders when they replace the bulkhead. I mean, that would be a good question to ask of, the engineering department. I don't know what's in the plans.
I don't even know the material they're using, metal,
Yeah.
wood, I'm not sure how they
The
went.
current ones are wood or metal?
Oh,
The
there's-
combination,
Yeah,
yeah.
there's something by those bushes, if you've got the ladders on the ones on the right, which I think are
Right.
attached to wood, but then you have some kind of metal in the middle
Okay,
where the brush is. If you want the scraggly brush at the edge.
there's different generations
Mix,
of ways. to-
hodgepodge of them.
Yeah. Okay, so I mean, is there anything else that we need to discuss relative to that filing? I don't know that there is. And we got the answer that was on the agenda to the question about Parks and Rec, so we can close out the question about having consistency with respect to who's administering all those moorings. There's now just a handful that are administered by Parks and Rec. So, and that'll continue, and we'll just be on different time cycles and different charging schemes also, with people using for boaters, so. But it's up to them to decide if they wanted to hand it off, or they don't.
But it's the town's tackle, right?
It is.
And does the rec department charge for that, or
No,
do?
we charge
We charge.
the rec department for the tackle, and what they're doing is built into their charging scheme. That's my understanding.
Right, okay.
So there's an annual letter that I had been sending historically in January to Parks and Rec and ask them to pay for their
they do.
part of those.
So that will continue to be a responsibility of the mooring committee,
Right.
to be sure that the.
Whoever takes over should do that billing every year for whatever number of functioning moorings are in the Parks and Rec group of moorings. How many are there now that are there? Not fewer than I think they've historically.
They have, I want to say they have 6.
Just 6?
No.
Left. So,
Oh, ladders? What are you talking about?
no,
Well,
how many moorings are Parks and Rec moorings? Or is there-
I thought it was 11.
I think they were originally, but I don't think that they really have that many.
Now we have, here we go, right now we have,
Starts with 2?
well, I numbered them 1 through 14,
Okay.
keep it easy. 1 is conservation, 2 is not used, 3 is.
2 is not even in place or not used?
Not used, it's too shallow, I believe.
Okay, so that one shouldn't
Then there's
count.
1 for harbor master, these are all kind of on the
So
corner.
that's 3.
Then they have 4, 5, 6, and 7 that were empty last year. They never assigned boats to them.
Okay, but we charge
Then they assigned boats to the next 3, and then we had 4. So there are actually 8 boats were out there. So altogether, there's probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 13.
13 total, of which.
Well, 13, I the unused one that's too shallow.
Okay. 13 of Parks and Rec or 13 total? 13 total.
Technically, the town has 9 of them available. But they only filled 3 of them, plus the conservation.
I'm not following this
Let me
conversation,
try.
forgive me. I'm interested in how many does Parks and Rec administer?
They administer 3, 4, 5, 6,
I got to 10.
9.
9?
9.
Okay. Honestly, I just don't remember what I billed them for last year, but I was operating.
10 if you count the harbor master one.
They should, that's in their town.
And that's 10.
Yeah,
That's
okay,
10.
so there's 10, okay.
Yeah, and then we have 4.
All right, so in the winter coming up, they should pay for 10
10.
cents of.
I would charge them
mooring
for 10.
tackle.
Correct.
Okay.
I get it.
All right, and there's one piece of new business that I'd like to offer for discussion, which is that the mooring chair historically has dealt with the segregation of duties between the harbor master administering the online mooring system and somebody else approving the bills on behalf of the commission for the bills that come in and working with Betty with respect to the deposits going to the town bank account of people who pay through credit cards on the online mooring system. So I would propose that we think about, with my term ending and transitioning that this fall, that we start maybe with next month to have somebody else who's a commissioner take responsibility for this job, which takes about 10 or 15 minutes a month to do, which is to look at the invoices and then check the financial reports in the online mooring system and just make sure that what online mooring is billing us for is sensible and fits with what makes sense to us and knowing what's going on. So, for example, in the most recent month, 2 people signed up for being on the waiting list. They each paid $60. $120 went to the town bank account, and I had to check with Betty to make sure that that in fact hit the town bank account, got credited to that 102 account, and also the people charged the credit card through online mooring, and they're billing us for the credit card charges and the fee now, $6 per record annual fee. So they were looking for $20 and change for being paid for the last month's worth of stuff. So we're going to need to...
Right, somebody needs to pay attention to the money's in and the money's out.
Somebody on the mooring committee should do that, and that way Betty is not making judgments about whether the bills, she's just paying the bills, she's not approving the bills.
Right.
And that works for the finance department to have somebody, he's administering the system, I'm reviewing the bills, Betty's paying the bills through the town finance department. So I think Bill or Jeff is going to require a volunteer from one of the 2 of the commissioners who will continue to do that. It literally takes about 10 or 15 minutes. The one time of the year when it gets a little busier is when Brian is processing, dozens of people in a given month, and you need to make sure that nothing gets sideways. Brian's got a really good handle on how the system works, and so mistakes are not being made in processing now that cause extra duplicate charges and so forth. So it's really just a formality to go through this process.
Right, but it requires access to the online mooring system.
Right, I think Brian's given our commissioners access, so we just need to make sure they've got the access that lets them see the financial report.
Right.
And that's it.
And you get an email.
And then you get an email from online mooring saying, hey, pay my bills, and here's what we put in your bank account. Two emails, right? And you get them once a month around. This time of the month I got them today.
I can do that.
Okay.
So I can contact you for guidance.
So what I'll do is I'll contact online mooring, and I'll give them your email again, and then you'll get the next 2, and then contact me, and I can just walk you through, even by phone, how to do this. It's not hard.
And there's hardly anything besides that other than you have these meetings, right? So are you...
Yeah. Well, the other thing, and that's a good question, that we haven't talked about at all, and it sort of came up in connection with another committee that I appointed, that the town, just so that everybody knows, the town requires that an agenda for these meetings be filed 24 hours in advance of the meeting. And to have a meeting like this, you have to contact Jen Carpenter to get a space and to get assigned one of the bridge phone numbers, and then and then you get all the materials, and so we have our meeting. You put out the agenda to the town clerk more than 24 hours in advance. You make sure, if you're on a committee, you make sure that you distribute the agenda to the members of the committee, unlike the full HMC where Betty does the distribution work. But then when the meeting is over, Jack will go and do minutes, and minutes are required to be to the town clerk. I mean, guidelines are 5 days from the meeting. I mean, that's probably honored in the breach. But so to run a meeting like this, and for any of the committees, you agenda, minutes, and a room assignment.
The room assignment
and distribute.
It's one and done in the beginning of the year, and then the prior year, you just ask for a room assignment for the rest of the year. So I don't have to do it every month. It's a standing meeting. I only have to tell them if I'm canceling a meeting. They don't.
Right, it's not a big deal. The town clerk's office is easy to work with. You do it all by email. I mean, they usually if something's wrong, they get back to you in a matter of 24 hours of your request. But just so people know that that's what goes on behind the scenes, is that the agenda and the notice and the minutes.
Right. The minutes are really
the warrant committee on the website now.
They're there, and it's usually a paragraph, 2 or 3 paragraphs of. I just took a few notes.
The minutes legally only have to, what time the meeting started, who was in attendance, what was discussed, not even it's not a verbatim transcription.
Right.
A report was received from the harbor master.
Right.
A report was received from whatever,
Yeah.
and it has to note any votes.
Yeah.
And so they can be very short and legally sufficient.
Right, that it's, right,
Because the recording is saved as well.
right.
But, yeah, maybe you could just forward a couple of the emails that you used to communicate with Jennifer and Betty, just so I could see how the communication went, and,
Okay. Look how happy he is. He's fully.
just took a 50-pound weight.
Has not been a 50-pound weight. The more embarrassing thing is forgetting my code this morning, this afternoon. All right. Is there anything else? This is the kind of quiet time of year where we don't have too much chaos other than boats appearing in the harbor, so.
Logistic paperwork, no, you have to deal with the voters this time.
Right, but that tends to be pretty minor. And we're getting catch reports from our commercial fishermen?
No, his boat is not in yet.
Ah,
He's
okay.
having some surgery, apparently.
Okay.
He's having body part replaced.
Okay.
Any sign of swimmers?
No.
Good.
Just once, in that warm spell we had a few weeks ago, they were out there, not swimming, but using a stand-up paddleboard, a large one, to ferry themselves across one side to the other. They listened, they can put their life jackets on when I reminded them, and
That's great.
warm for the rest of the day, so it's fine.
That's great.
Won't get anyone's way.
Haven't seen any jumpers jumping off the Southport.
No, but I can talk to the Marine unit about that. We're concerned about that, obviously, because folks want to get on it. The fishermen are complaining
Yeah.
that you expect them, because there's nowhere to put your line in the water without getting in the way. And hopefully no one will get out there.
There is a notice in the agenda for this Saturday's blessing that talks about the planned repairs and managing expectations around the timing. So being able to get a SHIP grant and be able to do the work, and it's probably realistically more likely to be 2025 before that work would be done, since there's no SHIP grants in the near future. So.
SHIP, John, is Small Harbors. It's an acronym for Small Harbors
Improvement project.
Project.
Oh.
HIP. It's a grant from the state, and that whole lower wharf that we had to close last year because of the storm damage to it can't be opened. But there's plans to get a grant to.
Right, you could cover 80% of it if we can get the grant, but, so we're sort of in a holding pattern.
Yeah.
It's a dangerous structure we have to keep our eyes on, keep people off of.
Right.
One of them fishermen almost got hit by a flare on flare day.
Yeah, I remember.
He moved.
He thought he would just sit in front of us. And then one of the boat wanted to go right off of where we're shooting flares. He said, I'll sit here with my kayak and
Watch.
fish. Like, really, dude? Come on.
We were out on the water when the flares were going on.
Yeah.
I was the only one on my boat who knew that there was a.
They were
going on.
freaking
The other
out.
guys on my boat were going, what the heck is going on?
And you were racing that morning, right?
Yeah.
You guys got up early, yeah.
And,
So they were visible from where you were sailing?
oh yeah, especially the ones that you launched,
I was very curious, because you were way out. I saw where you
Way out.
were.
Here's the solar flares, those are high.
Yeah, you could really see those.
The 45-second ones were big.
Yeah.
Those were the nicest ones.
The yellow soulless ones.
The yellow with the spiral,
Right.
those worked the best.
Expensive.
There was another brand, the bigger, fatter one, it was a Canadian company, did not work right then. I'll show you a picture. They went down and to the left. We don't know why. I mean, I have a picture of me aiming that way, and the flare is literally the trail is going this way.
And the wind was blowing.
The wind was blowing. We were shooting it with the wind to my back, trying to push them out.
Yeah.
And it's a good thing we did move that one vessel. We had that moved because they were all landing right at that spot. So we had a nice clear area to shoot. But that's good to know
I
you
took
saw.
the safety at sea course up in Bristol, Rhode Island. We were practicing firing flares down on the water, and then up on the hill they had another station. They were practicing using fire extinguishers. They had a fire that you would blow out with the fire. Some of the flares were landing right where the fire was, and people were saying, "Oh, here comes," and they're taking fire.
It's a good combination to do it together.
What we learned is those flares, the hands are really dangerous.
Yeah.
You have to have them off the side of your boat downwind because there are hot pieces of
Flag coming off.
flag coming off, getting everywhere.
Yeah.
And they're a little scary. They're bright. If you have a sail up, you don't want to be anywhere near anything. They are so big and bright.
So is it worth it to put out a report? I mean, you have all this information.
Yeah, I was going to, Jeff was asking me to write something up about that and to do a little a narrative
Yeah.
to circulate. So I'm going to work on that. He wanted me to circulate it to the other harbor masters. we talked about trying to reinvigorate the Connecticut Association of Harbor Masters. Apparently there's a group that I got welcomed to when I got appointed, but hasn't met in the last 2 years. And, and Jeff said it may take someone like you just to call a meeting, basically. Get
Right.
people together virtually or somewhere in a central location. Have a bunch of harbor masters come just to say hi and brainstorm with each other and share ideas. He goes, this would be a great thing to share, the Flair Day. Even one of the Coast Guardsmen, when I announced it was over, I had to call the New Haven. One of them reached out to me, and they didn't reach out to me when I made the call back to the Coast Guard to tell it was over. He goes, thank you, I've noted that. He goes, sir, could you tell me what Flair Day is for educational purposes? So they don't even, and he said,
Wow.
by the end of it, he said, that's a great idea. Do something
Yeah.
like that for folks.
Absolutely.
But to have a report or,
Or we
you
could
know,
circulate- Jeff said he could circulate it
Yeah.
around to other harbor masters.
Yeah.
We could do the public too,
yeah,
what Flair Day was, and
Yeah.
maybe make this an
Yeah,
annual
we've been
event.
sailing for decades and never used the flare. We always had
Exactly.
them, but we never had occasion to use them.
thank God.
And you realize why some of the older ones you should get rid of, because some of the big ones, not the little ones seem to work with the little plastic Orion gun.
Right,
They also make a bigger version of the Orion handgun with a bigger,
a shotgun.
this big, and the shells are bigger. Those were all not working when they got old. So you'd think they still might work, and they were a lot of duds. And we learned the smoke canisters are amazing. These they have floating smoke canisters. You should see the smoke coming out of those things. They light up it.
Those are also soulless things, those are
Yeah,
expensive too.
well, they're very expensive,
Right.
but they're interesting units and easy to use.
Yeah, don't mess up your boat as much.
Good.
All right, anything from the public today? Pat,
Say again?
anything to contribute before we wrap up?
No, I'd like to say good afternoon and have a nice evening.
All right, happy Flag Day to all tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
All right,
All right.
we are adjourned. Thank you very much.